Okay, so in this video we're going to take a look at live paint, and what we're going to find is that live paint, first of all, why use live paint and what is it? Well, with live paint you get to use a paint bucket and drop color in, and really we can say that live paint gives us a lot of freedom in Illustrator, and what it gives us the freedom to do is to add color and fill based on the visual appearance rather than worrying so much about the underlying structure of anchors and paths. That might make sense, and if it doesn't, it will in a minute. All right, so first thing I want to do is I'm going to just place a photograph of foliage into Illustrator. So I'm going to come on in, I have it on my desktop, I'm going to come File, Place, and my desktop is a mess, so forgive me for a minute. Let me find it. There we go. It's a big image. Could have sized it down, but I did not. So I'm going to zoom it on in a little bit here real quick. I'm going to shift click, pull in, resize this image, bring it on over so it fits on my artboard, make it smaller. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect, no big deal. And that is just fine. What I could also do right now to make it fit is I could readjust my artboard and make my artboard fit this image. Okay, now that I have this image placed in, what I may want to do, I'm going to hit escape to exit out of that. We'll zoom it on in just a little bit so we can see it better. And there we go. Okay, what I probably want to do right now is I want to open up my layers. Okay, and I'm going to make this layer into a template. So I'm working in Essentials right now, and what you can see, I'm going to pull this over, is that these are the different main windows that I'm going to be working with, and there are some good ones. So if I double click layer 1, I'm going to click that it's a template, and I'm going to dim it, and you'll see that automatically when you do that, it dims it. So I'm going to name this template. This is going to be the image that's underneath it that I'm working to, and I want to dim it. So I can see it a little bit better. And what you'll find is that Illustrator will automatically lock it. So I'm going to create a new layer, and this is where I am going to start to work. Now what I want to do right now is I want to zoom it on in. I'm going to focus in right here. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we are going to start to draw in Illustrator, and we're not going to worry so much about anchor points and paths. Okay, if you watch my videos on the pen tool, if you've done anything with the pen tool, we know that we have to really make sure that our paths are closed to do fills, or we start running into all kinds of trouble. Well, we can work in live paint with our pencil and start to draw, and then go in and just drop color in as we do with the paint bucket. So let's begin. So I'm going to grab my pencil tool. I'm going to put it on a 1-point stroke, and I'm going to come around, and I'm just going to start, creating an outline of this object. And it does not need to be perfect. Now you might find that really the best way to do this is you might want to work with a Wacom tablet, a bamboo tablet, makes it a lot easier. So first thing I need to do in order to do another shape is I need to deselect. Now I'm going to come back in, and I believe my pencil, the keyboard shortcut to my pencil is the letter N. Okay, so I could come in and say, okay, there's this shadow right here. But as you see, right, this is not, I'm going to come back in and do a fill. This is not a closed path, right? These are two different paths. I come in and say, now again, I'm going to deselect this. I'm going to come back in. If I was to look at my layers, what I'm going to find is that each one of these is its own object. Again, Illustrator very much thinking as objects, thinking of the things that we're creating as objects. Again, coming back in, I could come on in here and say, oh, look, there's this shape right in here. Now again, I don't need to worry so much about closing it up. What I can do instead is just have it nice and close to each other, and then Illustrator is going to detect this in live paint. We're going to do a fill. Running that over that. Okay, and there's this nice highlight up here. So I'm going to grab this highlight. Now, what's great too is, and I'll show you how to do this after the fact, If we want to add to this, we can. All right, so what I've just done is I've created this outline and said, okay, these are these different shapes that I see in here, but I can see, right, that there's these separate paths. And sometimes, especially when I look at that one, that's just a line. That's it. Okay, so what I want to do right now is I want to make them into a live paint group, grab my bucket and start to dump in some color. So how do I go about doing that? First thing, I want to select these objects right in here. Voila, they're all selected. Now I want to make them into a live paint group. So I can come to two different ways to do this. Object, live paint, make. Now, another thing to note is that you have this gap options, and the gap options are set to detect them. Okay. What is a gap? Well, a gap would be a space between these two different objects, these two different paths. Okay, so it is set to detect, but it won't detect all of them. So really your best bet is to go in and make your outlines close to one another. Okay, so again, coming on in, I'm going to select this. I'm going to grab it, draw a selection around this object. And I'm going to show you another way to make it into your live paint. First thing we want to do, oops, sorry about that, is we're going to come on in over here and we're going to grab our live paint bucket. In CS6, the live paint bucket is in with the shape builder tool. So I'm going to click this right here. I'm going to hover around and it's going to say, click to make a live paint group. Ah, awesome. So now what I can do is I can come on in, I can grab my bucket, and I can hover in and I can start to drop colors with my bucket. What's the story with the bucket? Well, the bucket is going to directly reflect what is in your swatches. So I click, I open up my swatches, and I can see that I have these colors in here. Now, what I want to do is I want to say, you know what? There's a lot of really awesome colors that I want to work with that are in my library. So I can open up my library, and you see I can go to earth tones or some good stuff in there. I could come to nature, and why not come on into foliage? Okay, and I can see I have all these different libraries in here. You can even create your own. What I could do is I could take this folder and I'm going to drag it and I'm going to drop it right in there. Okay, so there we can see it right there. I think I want this one too. I'm going to pull this out right here. And I want it to be in my swatches because you're going to see why in a minute. Okay, great, wonderful. What I'm going to do right now is click, maybe I want this one too. I think this one looks like a nice one. Foliage 3. Okay, great. So really when you come up with the paint bucket, your best bet is to really have your colors planned. All right, so I'm going to start with this light color in here. I come on over and see it's loaded into my bucket. So I can click and that spills in. Now, what I want to do is if I want to go a little bit lighter, actually I want to come on over to here. Watch what I can do. I can use my back and forth arrow and see as I look over in here, see how my swatch moves around my selection and it is loaded into my paint bucket. So I could just click in where I want it to be dark and click that in. And where I want it to be light, I can click that too. All right, so now what I might want to do right now though is load my color in and actually come on in because I want something a little bit lighter. So I'm going to click right here. I'm going to come right in there and click, click, and there I have it. There I have it. I paused and I drew this in, but when we take a look at this too, we can very easily, we can turn off our stroke. So I just selected this with the black arrow. We can turn the stroke off. I could even, if I want to, come in and choose, a different color for my stroke, adding a little bit of more interest. Again, options are endless. Now, what I've done here, and let's take a look at our layers because we want to see that really what happens when we do live paint is they work as a group. So we can see I have this live paint group, and then these other shapes that I drew after the fact, they're not seen as part of the live paint. So when I hover around, right, I can't just drop a color in. So what I want to do in order for them to behave like live paint is I want to merge them with live paint. And this is how I would go about doing that. What I want to do, and again, there's a bunch of different ways to do that. Let's go over some of them. I could select them all. All right, so now they're all selected. And I could come on into Objects, live paint, and I could say make. All right, so now what's happened though is this is live paint 1. They're 2 different groups. So that's one way to go about doing it. We'll look at another way in a minute. All right, so again, this is my live paint group. I can come on in. I need to grab my buckets, my bucket. I think it's the letter K. I always forget these keyboards, letter K. Grab my bucket. I can come on over. Again, moving through my swatches. I want to open up my swatches so I can see where I am. I'm going to start right in here with this swatch. And I want to go right to there. Click, click, click. A lot of these are lighter. I want to go darker in here. Maybe I want to come up to this one. Darker, darker. And again, if I wanted to even go a little bit darker, we could even add more colors. Maybe make that one that color. Lots of possibilities. Opening up, want to make another little bit of a lighter color. Actually, maybe even making this one a new swatch. Why not? Say OK. If I want to make it a new swatch. All right, so then it's up there. All right, so then I can come on in, drag, drop, drop. Then I can come back over and move around and drop, drop, drop. All right, if I want to turn off my stroke, again, if I click turn it off, again, I need to have objects selected, so I could grab, if I grab the black arrow and I click, you're going to see that this operates as a group, right? It is seen as a group by Illustrator, so we can come in, we can turn this off, or again, you know, just adding some more visual interest, possibilities. We're building this artwork, lots of possibilities. As I say, the possibilities are endless. Now, if I want to come back into the mode of, let's say I look at this and I say, you know what? I want to add to this group that I'm working on. I want to break this down into 2 colors. Well, how can I go about doing that? Well, it's actually pretty easy to do. And there's a couple different ways to do it. That's the beauty of Illustrator. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go into isolation mode. All right, so what is isolation mode? Well, I want to isolate just this live paint group. So I'm going to just double click right on here. And now you'll see I'm in isolation mode and I'm just working in on this group. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit right in here up. And one problem with isolation mode is, see, it's kind of hard to see this difference of this color. Okay, now I'm going to come on in and I want to grab my pencil tool and I'm going to add a little line running across here. Okay, and what's happened now, if I look, this was added right in to the group, and it's not letting me turn off, but it was added right into the group. I'll click on it. And it's in this live paint group. Okay, makes sense? Sort of, kind of, maybe. But in isolation mode, it actually will add different objects in. Now I can come back in, grab my paint group, my paint bucket, and I could drop in a color if I'd like to. I want to get back in, open up my swatches so I can see. And I want that little color right there, and I'm going to drop that color right there. All right, so there we have it. All right, let's take a look one more time about, now I can come on into my layers. I can see what I have done up, and I open up my artboard. All right, hold on. Upsie, upsie, upsies. Hold on, artboard. All right, closing that guy up. Somehow my layers are right in front of me. Isn't that lovely? I'm looking for my layers thinking, where are they? All right, so I could turn off what I have done and I can see this is the artwork that I'm starting to build. And it's actually very interesting. It's got this interesting kind of look to it. Now, again, let's go over and we can see we have 2 live paint groups. All right, what about if I wanted to add and make them all the live paint groups? Well, what we could do is we could do a couple different things. And again, not to overwhelm you with all these different options, but coming back in, grabbing my pencil tool, which is the letter N, I believe. There we go. And I'm going to come back in. I'm going to turn this fill off. And again, I'm just going to start coming in and just drawing around. I'll draw this shape right here. Okay, so there we have that shape. Now, again, we're going to see that this shape is right here and it's not part of this path. Okay, not part of it. So what we could do, though, is very easily, we could just take this layer and we could drag it and drop it into it, that live paint, and now it's inside of this live paint. Okay, so you can drag and drop things if you would like to, and then it automatically is part of that live paint group. Make sense? Now, another way that you could do this is you could enter into isolation mode, and then if you isolate one of the live paint groups, and again, we isolate things by just, let's say I wanted everything to be, just to keep it all organized in this live paint group, I could double click. Now I'm in isolation mode. Now it is kind of difficult to see though, right? Because everything is kind of, is not kind of, it totally is, it's darked out. But I think, just for going in and drawing around, you can see what the shapes are that you have. So we could grab our pencil, draw that shape right there, and what we're going to see is that as I draw these shapes, they're all going inside of here. I draw this shadow in here. There's this nice little highlight up in here, and a little bit darker, we'll say, in there. Now I want to close this up. Okay, now I'm going to hit escape, get out of isolation mode. These are all in live paint. Again, I can come on in, I can grab my bucket, which is the letter K, and I can start to come in and drop things in. All right, let's see. Now it actually looks like it's not recognizing these different paths. They don't look like they're working so well. And I think what I may have done actually, and I should double check this, and I can by just clicking this, I think that I may have put them into two different live paint groups. So that can get a little confusing. Let's see what I just did. That one is here, and that one is in the first live paint group. Okay, so what I need to do is I'm going to take this right here. I can click this, I can open it up. There it is. I'm going to take it, I'm going to drag it and drop it into the right live paint group. All right, so now, and let's see about this one. I think this one is right there. And again, I'm going to take this one, drag it, and drop it into this live paint group. All right, and now I'll come back in and grab my bucket. Let's see if this has worked. So not to make this all so confusing, because it really doesn't have to be. All right, let's say I want this one to be in live paint. I want this one to be in live paint. It's not in it, it's under it. Okay, there we go. Now it's in there. All right, so now I could come on in and I could grab this bucket and start coming in and hovering around. And dropping in color. Opening up my swatches. Let's add a little bit of difference here. Dropping that in. Okay, so we have a little something here that we can look at. I could change this stroke color to. Now again, what I can do to change the stroke color is click onto this. This is all the same group. So they're all changing together. So there we go. There we have it. Now, probably your best bet, not to confuse everyone, but is to make some different live paint groups. So what I could do now is come on back, grab my pencil, letter N for my pencil, come on in. I can zoom it on in, and I can grab my pencil, whoosh, and I can start moving around my different shapes here. Again, when I do that, I need to, after I draw it, I need to deselect it. Now, really your best bet, and I didn't do that, your best bet, because it keeps disappearing, is to add a little stroke to this. All right, so what I want to do right now is come on in, add a stroke. It just makes life easier. It's easier to see it. I'm going to deselect, grab this one. We have this shadow in here. Voila. Deselect. Letter N. And come on in. I can see there's this nice little color right in here. Let's see, I didn't deselect it. Let's see if it's gonna, it may end up disappearing, but let's see what happens. There we go. All worked out fine. I could come on in, deselect this. See, there's all these blues in here. I'm just going to grab these colors, drag it around like so, deselect, move this around like so. All right, now next thing I could do, and probably again your best bet then, is to come on in and make this its own little group. You can have as many groups as you would like. These are all selected. Might zoom in a little bit. And actually I could even, the way I could select them is if I grab this, there we go, and hold down Shift, click, click, click all these different little objects that we would like. And again, then we can make another live paint group, and we can do that by just grabbing our live paint buckets and clicking, and now this becomes its own group too. So if we come on in, we can say we have this group, we have our next group, and we have our other groups. So really whatever works best for you, you can use as many groups as you would like, and we can come on through and you can see that we could really, do quite a bit with this. We can add all kinds of colors, and the fun never ends with Illustrator. Whoopsie. Okay, so I want to drop this in my bucket. There we go. I'm leaving a fill on. You can turn a fill off. You can turn a fill off. Actually, this one's kind of, I thought, more blue. So I could come on in, double click my fill. Maybe I want more of like a blue-green. Why not add that one in? Oopsie, and I didn't have it selected. All right, so there we go. Now it is. Now it's where we need it to be. Coming on in, I want to do that one, that blue. I'm going to come on in, grab this green. I'm going to drop that one right there. Go for my little lighter guy. I'm going to drag, drop that one in there. And there we have it. Time to zoom on in. Okay, and we're starting to build some, an Illustrator piece of artwork with live trace. We can click this off and we can kind of get the sense of what it is that we're doing. And we could proceed and really just work throughout this entire thing. Thanks for listening and for watching a live paint project in process.